We are the CAT8, also known as the Community Assistance Team 8.
Is a group of Jain individuals and professionals
who are assisting the community at large
during the COVID-19 crisis.
CAT8 began just before the COVID-19 crisis,
when it held a can challenge,
where children created iconic monuments
using cans of food,
raised some 3 tons of canned foods,
enough supply for 4 months,
for the Watford Food Bank,
run by the Trussell Trust.
During the COVID-19 crisis,
CAT8 is helping the elderly, the vulnerable,
those in isolation and key workers.
With meals, essential shopping,
help with medicine collection,
and someone to talk to
whilst coping with isolation.
CAT8 has lined up
a series of webinars.
In addition, we have created a helpline
for individuals and businesses
that need guidance
on the various government schemes.
And the topics of the webinars.
CAT8 is working with
or supporting various organizations,
including Go Dharmic,
Sevate,
Navnath,
SCVP,
One Jain,
the Trussell Trust,
and working with many volunteers.
CAT8 is the newest network fiber,
connecting the community. Thank you. We are very kindly supported by a number of businesses to enable us to carry out our work. We thank them all. So today, if you can go next slide, please. Thank you. Our speaker today is Paul Arora, who's been working in the financial service industry for over 30 years at a senior level with many high street banks. He now works at Crystal Financial Solutions Limited. Before entering the financial services sector, Paul worked as a Heathrow Airport at Heathrow Airport as a uniformed customs officer on a specialist drugs team for 4 years. He has a diploma in financial services and takes great pride in helping clients to build a better and a wealthy future. He specializes in pensions, both personal and company, investment, and inheritance tax planning. Paul has also worked for the other side with the Financial Ombudsman, where he was an adjudicator dealing with pension and investment complaints, giving him an insight on what good financial advice should look like. So over to you, Paul.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you enjoy the video. My name's Paul Arora, and I'll be taking you through a whistle-stop tour on pensions. Now, I appreciate you've given up your morning, and I am probably standing between your Sunday lunch and also spending time with your family, and like me, probably wanting to get an afternoon nap. So let me start off. What is a pension? So to put it quite simply, a pension is a savings plan that will help you provide income for your retirement. What's really good about a pension, there are excellent tax advantages when you contribute into a pension. So that's really quite important. Now, I'm going to go through the agenda. So I've broken it into 3 parts. So basically, it's looking at things such as the state pension, why save for retirement, what are the benefits of a pension, what are the benefits of saving, and also the tax breaks and the tax benefits. Then, how a pension works, your actual road path to retirement. The accumulation stage, well, in simple terms, that means, how do I save? And what generous allowances are available for you to be able to pay into a pension scheme. Moving on from that, we'll then look at what we call the pension wrapper. That's basically the different types of pensions available in the marketplace. And I just want to make sure we can establish which is the best type of pension that you can actually put your money into. Then there's what we call the deaccumulation stage, and that's actually quite simply how you take your pension out. Then if I haven't convinced you at that point, I'm going to talk about what we call the cost of delay. The reasons why you should be paying into a pension, and then I'll just summarize the meeting. Okay, so let me just go on. So let's look at the state pension. So these are quite interesting facts. Introduced on the 1st of January 1908, and interestingly enough, the first state pension paid between 10 and 25 pence per week for those people over 70 and with a life expectancy of around 9 years. It came into effect on the 1st of January 1909 and was known as Pension Day. And to be able to receive your pension, you had to be of good character. So I think many of our politicians today will probably struggle to be able to claim a state pension. So going on from there, a couple of questions you need to ask yourself. Do you know your state pension retirement age? And do you know if you're on target to receive a full state pension? So let's have a look. So what is my state retirement age? Well, there you go. There's a link to actually tell you how to find out what your state retirement age is. But let me just demonstrate to you really quickly what you need to do. So just go into Google and then type in, what is my state retirement age or state pension age, whichever is easiest. Go on the link and then it will take you through to check your state pension. Now I've used myself as an example, so follow the instructions, very straightforward. So what you need to do is put in your date of birth. So I've keyed in my date of birth. I have to scroll back quite far to find my year. And then basically my gender. And there you have it. That actually shows you my state retirement date will be on the 6th of November 2030 when I'm 67. So I know Mr. Jinnit Shah's on the webinar, so just bear in mind that's my state retirement age, and therefore I expect a really nice party on that date. And anyone that's on the webinar today, I'm sure Jinnit will allow you to come along as well. So moving on from there, how much is my state pension? Now this is a really important question. We all save each month into savings plans, bank accounts, investment accounts, private pensions, ISAs. So we know what goes in and we know what they're worth. The thing is, you pay each month or each week, every year you pay national insurance, and part of your national insurance contribution actually goes towards your state pension. But do you actually know what your state pension is? So again, let me show you, give a quick demonstration. So again, go into Google, type in what is my state pension. So when you go to the link, so you check your state pension forecast. Now again, the instructions are fairly straightforward. Initially, unless you've already signed to the government gateway, you'll be given these different options. And what you need to do, if you haven't done it before, you need to create an account. Now to do that, have things such as your national insurance number available, passport, a P60, a payslip, any tax information, because that's how they're going to basically link you up to be able to look at your state pensions. So once you've done that, I'm not going to go through today on how to create the account. It's a fairly straightforward process. What you then need to do is you then need to sign into the government gateway. So once you've signed into the government gateway, you will then be able to see how much your state pension is. So this is an example where it's showing my state pension. So again, a bit more detail. So you've gone in, I can see that I'm actually on target in 2030 for a full state pension. However, if I stopped working today and paid no further national insurance contributions, my state pension will be £159.61. To be able to get the full state pension, I've still got to work a further 4 years before. Now, what's really important here, you can also look at your national insurance contributions and you can see if you've paid up your full national insurance. Now, this is the one time you need to check, because once you come to retire, this can't be put right. So if you know if there's something missing or the record's incorrect, you need to get in touch with HMRC. Now, in some cases, like myself, I was contracted out through an old company pension scheme, an employer scheme. So I can actually look to see how much additional pension I'd get on top of my normal state pension. Now, in my case, that's a further £62.35. Now, that doesn't apply to everyone. It's generally if you've been contracted out through a previous employer that you'll be able to do this. But there you have it. So that shows you basically how you receive your state pension and how much you'll get. So I hope that's quite useful for everybody. Now, moving on from there, let's just summarise it. So the maximum state pension is £175.20 per week. And obviously, if you contract it out, you may get a bit more. It's estimated 1 in 3 people will retire solely on their state pension, which is quite concerning, given that when you look at, there's over 15 million people currently in the UK that have no pension savings. Moving on from that, according to the Office of National Statistics, the average weekly expenditure for a family home is £585.60 per week. Given that the state pension is £175.20, for a couple, it becomes more difficult to maintain a decent standard of living in retirement, and this is something quite concerning. I do appreciate every household has different expenditures, but this is just basically showing you the state pension is just not enough moving forward to live on. So going on from there, why save for retirement? So these are the reasons. The UK population's ageing. The average age of life expectancy in the UK is currently now 81.4 years. That's how long people are living in retirement on average. Moving on from that, currently there's over 12 million people in the UK, well, nearly 12 million people in the UK that are currently aged 65 or over. Moving on from that, by 2030, it's estimated that 21.8% of the UK population will be over 65. And as you can see, the numbers over 75 and 85. And that's quite personal to me. I have 2 parents that sit in the 3.2% category. I have a mother that's 85 and a father that's currently 92, still living on pension and state pension. So when we go on from there, let's see what others have to say about pensions.
How do you know so much about your pension then?
Well, I went online and looked at it. You need to do a bit more research.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do it.
2 minutes on the sauce!
Having a workplace pension is like having another you.
Oh, I wish I had a little helper like that.
At work, helping earn money for when you retire.
So what they're trying to show here in this advert is you working and your pension working with you, like the 2 little chefs here.
So that little person is your workplace pension.
It's kind of like a straightforward, simple concept, isn't it? It is.
Sorry, can you just bear with me 1 second? So it's gone on the computer there. There you go. So what are the benefits of saving into a pension? So first of all, it forces you to save until you're at least age 55, which is the earliest you can receive retirement. Now, come 2028, that age will move from 57 will move to 57. Moving from there, it will provide you an additional income in retirement. You can receive tax relief on your contributions from 20% onwards. For businesses, it will help to reduce your corporation tax, which is quite important. You can access up to 25% of your money tax-free as a lump sum. And you can now, under the new regulations, you can leave your pension to your direct descendants free of inheritance tax. Now, I know we've had previous webinars where we've touched upon inheritance tax. But with pensions, there is the capability of actually leaving them to your direct descendants if you're in the right kind of pension scheme. And this is quite an important part of planning, not just for your own personal retirement, but actually for inheritance tax. One of the key things here is make sure you've all completed your expression of wish form to make sure that you have designated who your pension goes to in the unlikely event of your death. So, what are the tax benefits of a pension? This is quite important. Let's look at those together. So just using a couple examples, for a basic rate taxpayer, you get 20% relief. So quite simply, you pay £80, HMRC pays an additional £20 to make up the contribution to £100. Now that is 25% growth on your money in one day. Think about that, reflect. Where else could you go today where you could make a 25% growth on your money in one day? For the higher rate, it's even better. It's a much better story, 40%. So that's what HMRC puts in. You paying 60, HMRC adds another £40, makes up your contribution to £100. Now, bearing in mind, in some incidences, you need to claim the additional 20% back from HMRC, the Inland Revenue tax people. However, that gives you a 67% growth on your £60 investment. Again, this is another good reason to grow your money for retirement and for inheritance tax planning. So when we go on from there, I'm now going to talk to you about how a pension works. So you've got what we call the savings phase and the payment phase. So let's look at those together. So look at the accumulation stage, which is the savings stage, sorry. Basically, this can also help you save on tax and national insurance when you pay into a pension, as I've already said. So if we go on from there, let's look at the road path to retirement. So all UK residents for tax purposes can contribute into a pension. The employed, the self-employed, company directors of limited companies, and house person, children and grandchildren. That may be something you weren't aware of, but yes, housewives, house persons, I should say, children, grandchildren can have money paid into a pension scheme for them. So let's look at these. So let's look at the employed. That's quite important. Everybody now, from 2012, auto-enrollment came into effect, which means all employers must now offer employers a pension scheme to their staff. Right. The current contributions are the employee, which is the person working, must pay at least 5% in as a minimum, and then the employer will pay 3% in. To me, this is free money. If you make the decision to join a pension scheme whilst you're giving up 5% of your earnings now, which you can later get in retirement, your employer needs to pay in a minimum 3%. So that's good news. So how does it work? Let's have a look. So you've got yourself, you've got the tax man, you've got your employer, it goes into an investment pot. Come age 55, you can take 25% as a tax-free lump sum, and the remaining 75% can be used to purchase an income or take an income. And again, I'll explain that later on in the presentation. Self-employed and company directors, very interesting one here. So whether you're employed, self-employed, well, particularly when you're self-employed or a director of a limited company, you need to seek your own arrangement. No one else is going to do it for you. So this is quite important. How do you build up your retirement? Do you look on selling on a business? Do you just basically revert to the state pension? What do you need to do? So how does it work again? You pay in, taxman pays into the pot, builds up, and at retirement, you can take 25% tax-free and the remaining as a lump sum. Sorry, not as a lump sum, but as an income in retirement. What's important here for limited companies, you actually pay the gross payment, but you can offset it against it as a business expense, which is really important. So again, another way to save tax. So what are your allowances? This is quite important. How much can you pay in? Well, the annual allowance is 40,000. So that's what you can pay into your pension. Yeah. Moving on from that, if you're in the fortunate position where your income is in excess of 200,000, your annual allowance does actually reduce. But again, this is where you need to seek professional financial advice to make sure that you're not exceeding the annual allowance, and therefore you can pay in to a pension scheme. Lifetime allowance, it might sound a lot of money, but you are entitled to have up to £1,073,100 built into your pension pot before it gets taxed. It sounds like a lot of money, but actually remember, that's got to provide you an income in retirement for the rest of your life. And if you want to use it for inheritance tax planning, you want it to keep going on to further generations. Carry forward. So again, for those fortunate enough to who've already paid into a pension in the past, can actually go back and carry forward 3 years. So technically speaking, you could pay in a further £120,000 into your pension. So what that means, to be able to do that, you have to pay into the current year, which is the 40,000, and then you can go back and make up for lost allowances. So house person children. So for those people that are listening, and for those children that are listening, this is your next, and your grandchildren, this is the next birthday, Christmas present that you want. Parents, grandchildren, house persons can pay in £240 a month into a pension scheme, and that's 2,880. Those contributions will immediately get tax relief of 20%. So that's further so that means each year you can pay 3,600 into a pension for a house person, a child, or a grandchild. Now think about if you've got newborns or young children. If you start them in a pension fund today, think of the benefits they'll have when they come to retirement. You've set up a legacy for them, something that will actually help them in their future lives, particularly since state pensions going down, costs are going up. So this is another way to help your children have a much more secure future. And obviously when they turn 18, they can take over it themselves. So what types of pension wrappers are there? So basically you've got the employed pension scheme, personal pensions, self-invested personal pensions, which is the SIP, small self-invested, self-administered schemes as well. So I'll go through these. So it's finding out which is the right one for you. So with the employed pension scheme, they can be broken into two categories. So first of all, you've got your final salary, career average pensions. Now what needs to be looked at here, these are very rare now. They're classed as gold-plated pensions. Typically, they're still available to doctors, dentists, teachers, civil servants, and large companies. These pensions are based on your salary rather than your contribution and any form of investment performance. Most companies have closed these because they're quite expensive to run, but for those that have these types of pensions, they're genuinely worth keeping. They're generally worth getting reviewed as well, because many companies are offering quite generous transfer value to move out of these sort of final salary schemes. But again, before you do that, seek professional advice. Don't just move these without taking professional financial advice, because in many incidences, they're really good to hold on to. So if we go on from there, then you've got the employer's pension scheme going into the money purchase defined contribution. Now, these are the most commonplace pensions. If you're an employer scheme, Nest, People's Pension, Smart Pension, that's what they invest in. These pensions do rely on investment performance and how much you pay in. Again, being they're an employer scheme, they'll typically have a limited fund range or specific funds that you'll just be put into. If you're unsure, speak to your employer's HR department, can tell you more about the pension funds themselves. But if you want further information, you can also take professional financial advice. So what are personal pensions? Well, personal pensions are money purchase defined contribution schemes. Typically, these are run by life insurance companies and only invest in personal pension funds. When you move on from that, you've then got the self-invested personal pension. These are similar to a personal pension, so they're money purchase defined contribution, but they do offer actually much more flexibility in terms of investment choice. And today's seminar is not about talking about investment choice, but you can invest in things like unit trusts, exchange traded funds, UK shares, overseas shares, commercial property, and much more. Again, if you want to find out more about these, speak to a professional financial advisor. So going on from there, you've got the small self-administered schemes, which are SASs. Now, these are really good for companies because they're administered by the taxman, HMRC. They offer incredible benefits. And these are the benefits. So again, company and personal contributions are deducted against tax. There's no tax on allowable investments. There's no capital gains tax due on disposals. Again, tax-free lump sum and great death benefits up to the age of 75 as well. Looking at them in a bit more detail. So again, just to summarize, more control and flexibility, contributions can be made by more than one employer. These sort of pensions are really good for people that are running family businesses and own their own commercial property, because they can actually place their property into a SAS, rent the SAS can then rent it back to the business. The business then pays rent, which can be treated as a business expense, and then the rent that goes into the SAS is going into the SAS free of tax. And also, given the circumstances we live in today, the SAS can actually lend money back to the business, and the SAS can also use the money to buy further commercial property. And it's good for members of a family that run a business or any business, a limited company, to club their pension funds together and get the best out of it. So what happens after you've gone through the hard work of building up for retirement? You come to what they call the deaccumulation stage, which is actually receiving your payment in retirement. Typically, when you look at this, you've got the pension freedoms that were introduced in 2015. Now, what does that mean? Basically, it was a decision the government made that everybody's grown up enough now to take control of their pension. What's important, before 2015, most people would typically take their tax-free cash, and after that, they'd have to buy an income. Now, there's a lot of generous benefits that are available to you and much more control at retirement. So let's look at that in a bit more detail. So what are your retirement options? There you go, there's all your different retirement options. So there's flexi-access drawdown, lump sum, annuity drawdown. Now, I know these are all technical terms, but I'm sure we can sort of understand them a bit more through the slides. But needless to say, when you come to the decision to take your retirement, you need to take professional financial advice to do that. And I can't emphasize that strongly enough. A couple of caveats here. Many of you on the webinar may hold old style pensions. Now, you may think under the new regulations that your old style pension immediately comes into line with the new rules. Well, they don't. A lot of the old style pensions still need to be moved into a new style contract to be able to access the pension freedoms. That's quite important. So don't just assume that the rules changed in 2015 and therefore your pension that you may have been contributing into the past privately meets the new terms. Also, many old pensions hold what we call valuable annuity rates. These are basically the rate of the interest they'll pay to give you income. Now, again, if you move them into new style contract, you may lose these annuity rates. Now, in my experience, I've seen clients that have actually been saving into old style pensions and they've actually been given an annuity rate of, say, 14% on their money. Now, that's a very valuable benefit not to give up. But there could be particular circumstances which may require you to give those benefits up. But again, don't just assume it's a benefit not worth giving up or worth giving up. Take professional financial advice. So what are your retirement options at a glance? So here you go. If you look at this graphic, typically most people would take their 25% tax-free cash. They could take tax-free cash and then they could take the whole lot out, but bearing in mind, once you take your tax-free cash and take the whole lot out, you will be taxed at your highest rate on the balance. On the other side, you could take small little lump sums out, or you could take your lump sums and an income. So you could do a combination of both, or you could still buy an annuity. So you could still buy an income that provides you a guaranteed income, or you could do a combination of all of them. And again, this is where you seek personal financial professional advice to make sure you know what's the right option for you at retirement, how best you want to take your income. When we go on to the next slide, if I still haven't convinced you to start saving towards retirement, let's look at the delay that you could face. So this is a very simple example that someone wants a modest pension of around 18,000 a year. So if they started at the age of 25, they'd only need to pay £262 a month to build a reasonable sized fund to give them 18,000 a year. If they left it for 10 years, they'd have to then pay £437 a month to build up the same size fund to give them the 18,000 income. If they left that until they were 45, then that cost goes up even higher to £794 a month. Now, I know there are many of you on this webinar today that fall into these individual categories, and you may be thinking today, given the current circumstances, I know the COVID-19 has had a lot of impact on everybody from jobs, safety, perspective of the future. You may think, well, this is not me, I can't afford this. Well, in my view, it's better to have the cup half full than half empty. Pay what you can afford. Don't rely on the state pension. Build up some fund outside of the state pension, be it through your employer, private, or a combination. But do something to build up a retirement pot. And remember, this pot can still be left on to family members, direct descendants, if anything happens to you. So in summary, the state pension alone is £175.20, which is not enough to live on. The pension provides great tax benefits. Your employer is required to pay into a pension for you. The self-employed can reduce their income tax, and company directors can treat the contributions into a pension as a business expense. Parents, grandparents can pay into a pension for their children and for their spouse and partners. You can access 25% of the pension free of tax. Income and retirement has never been more flexible since 2015 with pension freedoms. And again, I like to bring it up again, up to 75% of the pension is tax-free in terms of free of inheritance tax, left to direct descendants. So I hope these reasons are enough for you to actually think about starting a pension, increasing your contributions, or going back and looking at your employer's schemes. So one last thing, what I haven't done today is I haven't spoken about pension providers. As I said today, this webinar is more about information and understanding what pensions are about. So I haven't told you about what providers are out there that offer a pension scheme outside of the employer scheme. I haven't looked at the type of investment funds because that's quite personal to an individual, and it's something you need to have discussed to find out more about where to invest. I haven't talked about what I call closed funds or zombie funds. Many of you on the webinar may hold old style pensions that have changed hands year after year after year. What needs to be noted here, these funds aren't actively being looked after and managed by top investment managers, and therefore they're just sitting there, not really doing a great deal for you. Yes, they're growing, but they're not doing the best for you. And equally, they won't offer necessarily all the pension freedom rules. I haven't spoken about attitude to risk because everyone has a different approach on how they want to invest. So be it high, medium, low, or no risk. Again, this is a discussion you need to have with a professional financial advisor. I haven't talked about costs and charges because all these things do cost. As you know, nothing in life is free. So again, it's about what does it cost you to build up your fund for retirement. So given that we've all still got a bit of time in lockdown, and yes, we're having a bit of an ease from Monday, I've got a small checklist for everybody to do today and hopefully reflect. First of all, are you taking full advantage of your pension benefits? Have you ignored joining your company pension scheme? If you have, go back and find out when's the earliest you can go back into the scheme. Do you have these old style pensions that I've been going on about during this webinar? So, do you think you hold any closed funds? Because again, are they working in the best possible way for you? Gather your pension statements and check to see how much you've saved, and ask yourself, is this enough for my retirement? Or do I just want to fall back on £175.20 per week? Seek professional advice. And please go back to the previous webinars as they are all connected. And that is my presentation for today. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. I'm going to now do my best to hand back.